Okay, so this movie is called It's What's Inside. It came out on Friday on Netflix and it's in the top 10 right now in movies, so I want to see what's going on with it. The description of the movie says a mysterious party game unleashes mind blowing mayhem at a reunion of college frenemies in this psychological thriller where nobody is who they seem. So the movie begins with us seeing all of these couples and old friends getting ready to reunite with each other because they're going to this guy's wedding party. Our main characters are Cyrus and Shelby, like they're the main couple. We see that their sex life is kind of getting dry and Shelby's trying to spice it up, but she feel like Cyrus is more interested in corn than her. We also see that she's like popping Xannies on their way to the trip, and at first she didn't even want to go. Once they had the little bump in the road between them with her catching him watching corn, she didn't even want to go, and he was like, you always do this. Then when they got to the door of the event to meet up with all their friends, she brought it back up, and he was like, why are you bringing this up and we're here with all of our friends? Like, we also see that Shelby is really infatuated with Nikki's Instagram, which is one of the girls they're going to be meeting up with. She's the blonde one. She became like an Instagram influencer, and Shelby doesn't really get a lot of likes. So she finds herself comparing her page to Nikki's page a lot. And when they get to the party, the first thing everybody asks them, are Shelby and Cyrus engaged or married yet? They're not. And I mean, that is very questionable. This is 8 years after college. If you guys have been together since college, you should be at least engaged. So they get to talking to the groom, and he's like, I just wanted you guys to know I invited Forbes. So apparently Forbes is somebody who they went to school with. He got expelled because he was pretty weird and he used to throw these crazy game nights. He would get drunk and have a temper. He also had a younger sister who was in high school who he used to invite to these parties, and she would get wasted even though she was underage. She had a big crush on Dennis, who is this guy, but Dennis was already dating Nikki. The young girl ended up attacking Nikki, and it was a whole thing. Nikki ended up in a mental institution. Forbes ended up getting expelled and I think arrested because he had his sister at an underage drinking party. And basically, he kind of disappeared. They said he ended up in tech, but he doesn't really talk to them anymore. So they weren't sure if he was going to show up or not. Just a little while later, Forbes shows up and he has this huge suitcase. So they're like, what's in the suitcase? And he's like, I heard you guys said you wanted to play games like old times. So I have a game in the suitcase. But he's like, oh, it's something that you guys have to keep to yourselves. Like, it has to stay in this room, no phones out or anything. I'm like, what kind of shit is this? So he pulls out the game and they're like, oh, I thought this was going to be a board game. He has these like electrode things that are connected to the game. So he plugs one into the game and then the other end, they take the electrode and put it on their forehead. So I'm like, oh, this is about to be some mind control shit. And y'all should have knew that from that right there. So when he turned on the machine after doing all of that, you see it's 8 of them. So one person switched with one person. So 4 pairs of people and they all switched. So it's like their minds was in the other person's body. So he did it for a few minutes, switched them back, and everybody was freaking out like, what the hell was that? So they asked him, like, what is him and his team even working on this for? Because he said him and his team been working on this for 5 years. And he was like, oh, I really can't get into that. It's top secret. So they was like, if it's top secret, why did you bring it to this party? So Forbes was like, oh, I was surprised I got the invitation. I was surprised that you even wanted me here. And he's like, well, me and my friends sometimes play a game where we will do the body switch. And then we play a game where we all have to guess who's in whose body. But it's your night. I don't want to derail your night. So, you do what you want to do. But the groom was like, I actually do want to play the game. You could tell Shelby really didn't want to do it at first, but Cyrus had took her to the side and he was like, you always talking about how we got to get our connection back and we got to have more shared experiences and stuff like that. He was like, this could be a fun thing that me and you could do together. So she agreed, and Forbes gets to explain in the game, which is that they're all going to take a Polaroid picture before they start the game. While they're playing the game, anyone can guess who's in whose body at any point. If someone correctly guesses who you are, your photo is pinned to your body and you lose the round. If someone incorrectly guesses, then they have to reveal who they are and they're out of the round. So they're asking questions like, what's going to prevent somebody from lying? What's going to prevent you from winning the game if you're the one who programs the game? And who's to say that you're going to actually switch us back when you're supposed to? He says enough to reassure and soothe them, and they agree to begin the game. Shelby ends up getting switched with Brooke's body, so these two switch. And Shelby's like, oh yeah, I feel really good now. And they're like, wait, so now Shelby's high because she's in Brooke's body and Brooke was high as hell. Well, wait, I don't know if they actually switched, but I do know that Shelby is in Brooke's body. And I know that Cyrus is in his body. Okay, it looks like they probably did switch because Ruben is also in Cyrus's body. Now I'm confused because now they're saying that Cyrus is in Dennis's body, which is this guy. So how is he in two people's body? What's going on? So Cyrus, who's in Ruben's body, goes up to Dennis and he's like, why are you saying you're Cyrus? He's like, you're Forbes. So Forbes is in Dennis's body lying, trying to make shit even more confusing than it already is. I'm like, do Forbes want to be Cyrus or something? I'm not even halfway through this movie and this shit is definitely a mind fuck. But I do also see how it is like a dark comedy, but also a psychological thriller. But I definitely think y'all should watch it. It definitely seems like it's a good watch. And I'll come back and let you guys know my thoughts towards the end. Oh, yeah, it's getting crazy. I'm going to label everybody for y'all. But Maya is in Nikki's body. Cyrus is in Ruben's body. Ruben and Maya used to be a thing. So Maya, being in Nikki's body, she goes up to Cyrus, who's in Ruben's body, and starts kissing him, even though she knows that that's not really Ruben in there. So Maya in Nikki's body has Chris in Ruben's body say that he'll leave his girlfriend or fiance that he's marrying for Maya. So Cyrus, who's in Ruben's body, is getting frustrated with this whole thing, and he goes to Forbes, who's in Dennis's body, and says, "You need to switch us back." They switch back, and now Shelby is like wanting to go again, and like a lot of the rest of them. Cyrus is like, "No, I don't want to go back again," and he's asking Shelby like, "What made it so fun for you?" Because she was against it at first, or like really timid about it. So Dennis ends up going to Forbes and spilling the tea that it was not only him who told the dean about everything that got him expelled that I told y'all about earlier, but it was also Ruben. And he was like, "We both feel bad. We wouldn't have said all of that stuff to the dean if we knew that you was going to get kicked out of school." While they're talking, everyone comes back like, "Oh, let's do round two." So Forbes is like, "Fine, we could do one more round, but after that, we have to let the machine recharge for 24 hours. Cyrus tried to decline and said he had a headache, but he basically got peer pressured into doing it anyway by Dennis and Shelby. So when they switch, Cyrus is in Forbes' body, and he's trying to figure out whose body Shelby is in because him and her had made a little signal, and she didn't do it. The reason she didn't do the signal is because she was switched into Nikki's body. And remember, I told y'all she was obsessed with Nikki's Instagram because she's an influencer and Shelby Page don't be getting no likes. So she's excited to be Nikki because she's living vicariously through her and she's low key infatuated with the girl. She goes and posts on her Instagram, and 1 minute later, it already had 1,500 likes. So this round, Ruben is in Dennis's body and Maya is in Brooke's body. And he goes up to her like, "Oh, do you want to go check out the roof?" And she's like, "Yeah." So Ruben is in Dennis' body, remember, and Brooke is in Maya's body. They get up on that roof and start doing the nasty and fall off the roof and die. Now what's going to happen? Then Shelby and Cyrus are in Forbes and Nikki's bodies, making out, talking about, "I want you, Nikki. I love you, Forbes." Like, what? So Cyrus eventually breaks out of it and he's like, "I cannot do this." So he's panicking and he's like, "We need to end this game now." Shelby is so mad because she do not want to leave Nikki body. And it low-key seemed like she's attracted to Forbes. So as everybody is gathering back into the house, Ruben's soul, which is in Dennis's body, and Brooke's soul, which is in Maya's body, fall off the roof. So a couple hours have passed and everybody like, "What should we do? Should we call the cops?" And Forbes is like, "No, we're not calling the cops." So Cyrus is in Forbes' body and he's basically telling Dennis, "You have to go back to Ruben's body because I can't put you back into your own body because you're dead." And they end up getting into a conversation about how Cyrus always wanted Nikki, and because Nikki said no and ended up dating Dennis, basically Cyrus settled for Shelby. And he was like, "That's why y'all have been in a relationship for 9 years and y'all aren't engaged or married." So Dennis is in Cyrus' body and he's mad. So he decides to call the police and say, "This is Cyrus. I pushed Maya and Dennis off the roof. I killed them, blah, blah, blah." So now the police are on their way. And they're like, "Okay, we need to switch back quickly. Like, before the cops get here, whatever, we need to switch back and try to get out of here, basically." But they realize that Forbes, who is in Ruben's body, is trying to run off with the suitcase and the machine. So they end up subduing him and, knocking him out for a little while. And like I expected, Shelby is refusing to leave Nikki's body. She wants to stay in Nikki's body because she feels like, she likes the attention. And she's basically like, "Oh, you haven't done anything but make an Instagram account. You act like you're so good, but I saw your messages. You only help these charities because of the money. It's not because like it's from your heart." So she's just dragging her down. Now, Nikki is actually in Brooke's body. So Brooke slaps Shelby, who's in Nikki's body. And she's like, you don't get to say you're gonna keep my body. Like I said, this shit is a mind fuck on its own, and I'm gardening, so just follow along. But watch the movie, like I said, it's a good watch. So Shelby's in Nikki's body talking to Cyrus and Forbes' body, and she's like, "I heard that whole argument y'all just had out there where you basically said I was the second choice because you couldn't date Nikki." And he was like, "No, I had a crush on Nikki back then, but I'm in love with you now." And she was like, "Yeah, but you don't touch me. I feel like you're not attracted to me." And he was like, "I'm effed up. I watch effed up stuff online, the corn, and I avoid you. But we could talk about all of that once we switch back." And he's like, "I love you." And she's just still talking about she don't want to switch back out of Nikki's body. But the real Nikki, who is in Brooke's body, is not having that anyway. Now, remember, I told y'all earlier, Cyrus was in Ruben body and Maya was in Nikki's body and they were kissing and stuff. So now Cyrus is in Forbes' body trying to convince Shelby, who's in Nikki's body, to switch back. But they're sitting in the room with Maya, who's in Shelby's body, and she's like, "Was that you earlier who was kissing me because you wanted to kiss Nikki?" Y'all might be confused. Like, but basically, Cyrus tea is getting spilt in front of Shelby that he's still attracted to Nikki. So now Shelby's really mad in Nikki's body because she realized that, he's basically lying and he still likes Nikki or that type of girl. So she goes in the room and she basically tells Forbes, who's in Ruben's body, and Nikki, who's in Brooke's body, that nobody's switching back. And remember, she's in Nikki's body right now, Shelby. So she shows her the phone and she's like, "You want me to post this?" And it was like a video of Nikki saying like F BLM, F all these charities I work with. So basically to sabotage her. So Nikki being in Brooke's body was like, she had no choice. She don't want her career to be ruined if she do ever get back into her body. So Shelby goes to Cyrus and she's like, "If you really wanted Nikki all this time deep down, we can make this work and really start fresh. I can stay in Nikki's body. You can go into Ruben's body. Ruben won't get married tomorrow. Instead, he'll run off with his college friend Nikki. And they'll leave Dennis, who's in Cyrus's body, to take the fall for the deaths because that 911 call already got made saying it was him." So now one half of them is against the other half of them. Some of them don't want to go back to their bodies. Some of them do want to go back to their bodies. And then two of them already know they're not going back to their bodies, which is Dennis and Maya, because their bodies were killed. And Ruben and Brooke's souls were killed. So Nikki and Dennis are working together because Nikki wants her body back. And clearly Shelby's trying to keep her body. And then Dennis is in Cyrus's body. And he's like, "I'm not about to take the fall for the two people falling off the roof." So Nikki, who's in Brooke's body, goes over to Shelby, who's in Nikki's body, and basically puts peanut butter in her mouth, like off of her finger. And she's allergic. And she refuses to give her the EpiPen unless she switches back to the original body. And then also, Dennis discovers that some of his money got transferred out of his accounts, and he's accusing Cyrus because Cyrus was in his body. So the police get to the house just as they're firing the machine back up to supposedly switch back to their original selves, except for the two people that obviously couldn't switch back. Next day, we're seeing the little sister Beatrice that we've been hearing about since the beginning of the movie. She's definitely off her rocker. A lot of road rage, a lot of aggression. So when Beatrice gets there, she sees that the wedding is canceled. Like I said, she's very aggressive. And as soon as she sees her brother Forbes, she runs straight for him and attacks him. So he tells Beatrice that he's Dennis in Forbes' body. And she's like, "What the fuck?" So she realizes that something has gone wrong. And she's like, "I'm not who you think I am. I'm Forbes." So Forbes is actually in his sister Beatrice's body and has been the whole time. So I guess Beatrice was the person who came to the house as Forbes in his body. So Beatrice did all of this to get her revenge on Dennis and Nikki for what happened to her, which landed with her going to a mental institution because Dennis and Ruben basically made it look like Dennis never had anything with Beatrice and he was faithful to Nikki, but really he was messing with Beatrice and Nikki at the same time, and he was promising Beatrice all this stuff, but then didn't want to be with her because he wanted to be with Nikki. So now we're seeing the aftermath. Shelby and Cyrus have gone back to their original bodies. Cyrus is in jail. I guess he took the fall for for Dennis' body and Maya's body, which was really Ruben and Brooke, falling off the roof. And Shelby is visiting him in prison. Shelby acting all weird, like, "Oh, I can't help you out of this one, blah, blah, blah." But basically, Nikki is stuck in Ruben's body. Maya is in Brooke's body. And Beatrice was the one who was in Dennis's body at the time and transferred all of that money that he was accusing Cyrus of taking. And now the police are accusing Cyrus of taking. Beatrice is now in Nikki's body and she took off with the money, the machine, and a car. So basically, Beatrice was the one who had convinced Shelby to go to Cyrus and say, "Oh, do you want me to stay in Nikki's body and we could run off and be Nikki and Ruben?" And Shelby was like, "You agreed to that." And he was like, "But that's what you wanted me to do. Like, you came to me with the idea." And she was like, "No, that's not what I wanted you to do. I asked you a question and you said that that's what you wanted. You want to marry me, but you was willing to spend the rest of your life with me in somebody else's body. And basically, I'm done with you." I know this review was kind of hard to follow more than my usual ones, but that's because this movie is a mind fuck, like I keep saying. But trust me, just trust me. So the movie ends there. Like I said, if you watch it, everything does make sense. The only thing that really didn't make sense to me was this very ending part, because I really don't understand why Shelby is so mad at Cyrus. Like, I mean, a little bit, but like, I don't know. But yeah, I would give it like a 7 out of 10, and I do recommend it for like the Halloween season. So let me know y'all thoughts if you watch it in the comments. Okay, bye.